Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, my dear sister.
So we're here at a conference regarding Latin American and Asian and African countries, is that right?
Yes, this is the annual conference which is held on Asia, Africa, Latin America within the annual event of Latin America in London.
So you are from Ghana.
I'm from Ghana. My name is Explore Nani Kofi, and I run the Quilombo Center for Civil Society and African Self-Determination in a town called Peki in Ghana.
We've seen the election in Ghana. Ghana has kind of succeeded its democracy in a Western way, because that's a Western way of democracy. So Ghana has somewhat succeeded its democracy in a Western way, and when we're seeing the same thing in other countries, mostly French-speaking countries, where people are still struggling with their democracy, what do you think about it?
I don't know whether I would say that in my country, Ghana, or anywhere in Africa, the system of democracy, of government by the people, is being practiced. In fact, I was talking to some people in a community called Parliament Kaira, where I went to organize what we call the Ghana Street Parliament. And one elder stood up and said, the difference between Togo and Ghana is that in Togo, they beat you and use guns to silence you, and in Ghana, they use money to buy it. So Africa, there are various methods are being used. In some places, they physically assault you, they change constitutions. In some places, they manage to bribe the people to be quiet, and they do the same thing which they use violence to do in other countries. So it is important for the people of Africa to rise, and we can do it, because I want us to look at Burkina Faso. In Burkina Faso, Blaise Compaoré tried to change the constitution so that he can go third time according to the constitution, fifth time according to, if you don't want to refer to the latest constitution. And the ordinary people of Burkina Faso came out in the streets, mobilized, and despite his arms, which people were afraid of earlier on, Compaoré fled the country. Recently, in September, again, soldiers close to Compaoré tried to overthrow the interim government, which was there and which is preparing the country for elections. Within 1 week, ordinary people again came out on the streets to stop the coup. The soldiers have guns, the people didn't have guns, but they have stopped the soldiers. If it's happening in Burkina Faso, it can happen everywhere.
Well, what about in Congo, Brazzaville? We are experiencing the same type of situation. The president who's been there for 32 years now, so the constitution says that he can't go for that time because it's got a limitation of age and a limitation of terms. But he's just changed the constitution after massively killing the people who stood up, took the street to try to say no. What do you think about it?
I see the situation in Burundi, the situation in Cote d'Ivoire, the situation in Congo, Brazzaville, and I think that, one, it is necessary for the people in those countries to stand up to the tyrants they have, but I also think that because of the violence and aggressive nature of these tyrants, it is necessary for the whole world to unite to support them, because they cannot do it on their own. If they do it on their own, many people have died. In Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, the French have to go there and bomb to put Ouattara there. In Burundi, the government is now killing people, framing people up of being involved in coup d'etats. In Congo, Brazzaville, Sassou Nguesso should have known that he's been there for too long now. But he's also using his forces to torture, kill, and frighten the people, ordinary people who are standing for justice. The people, ordinary people in Congo-Brazzaville will stand by you and continue the fight. But I am convinced that it is necessary for us to mobilize everybody in this world to help you, because this is a tough battle and you cannot do it on your own. But it's also necessary for us to stand for principles. It's necessary for us to stand for justice, because Sassou Nguesso is just a human being like all of us. And as I always say wherever I talk, the world we live in, for good or for bad, have been shaped by human beings like you and I. Again, it is human beings like you and I who have the capacity to change it. And we have to solidarize with all the people in Congo-Brazzaville so that we can bring true democracy, government of the people, by the people, to Congo-Brazzaville. They deserve it. They have a right to it. They are human beings like everybody, and they have to live just like people elsewhere also enjoy their rights.
How do you explain the fact that whenever an African country is in trouble, other African countries seem not to feel concerned about that trouble, but whenever the trouble happens, countries like France, Germany, UK, all the African people become involved and feel like the trouble in Europe is theirs and they get involved in it. What's happening in Africa is not for them.
I've looked around the world and I see that many a time when anything happens, Africans, among ourselves, we don't value ourselves, we don't love ourselves, and we don't fight for ourselves. It is necessary for us to change. I come from Ghana. The first president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, talked about the African personality. We need and revive African personality. An African personality which sees every African as their brother and sister. An African personality which will make us first point of solidarity being among ourselves Africans before we can look out to others. And this can only happen if we are organized as a people, as a group, and working together. And every village in which we come from, we have to organize our people there to make them know that we are one people, to make them reverse the way in which colonialism has divided us, the way in which we are divided into English African, French African, Portuguese Africans. We are all Africans. And whenever one person is touched, it should be something we should feel. A blow to one is a blow to all of us. Touch one, touch all. If we start that, we will be able to strengthen ourselves, and even the supposed leaders and tyrants we have would think twice.
Right, so what do you think about this idea which says that African people can't unite because one, they don't like Africa, and two, they don't like each other. So it's not possible for them to unite.
That African people cannot unite is something which is not originally in Africans. Because Africans, if anybody's traveled Africa, one thing about Africans is even hospitality. The hospitality of our people is not known anywhere else. It's even because that hospitality that outsiders have been infiltrated Africa. Because Africans, whenever you go to them, they receive you, they give you everything you have. So people like this, how wouldn't they be able to unite? Because the new situation, the old situation still lives on in some communities. The new situation where Africans have become selfish is not the original African characteristic. Because even if you look at our cultures, everything in our culture is not about being selfish. It's about being communal. So how can people who have been communal all these years before enslavement and colonialism all of a sudden cannot unite? It means something negatively has happened, which we have to correct. When I have traveled across Africa, I hear this thing that we cannot unite. But I think maybe the governments and the politicians are the ones confusing us. Because when I go to ordinary people, the first time I went to Ethiopia was in 2009. I've never been in that country. Well, when them people as black people, they were nice to me as ordinary people. I didn't see any problem about how to integrate in the country. I've been traveling to Togo, Benin. I don't see any problem. So I think that there's something in the politicians which is misleading Africa, and that we as ordinary people should start uniting, because it's the unity of the ordinary people we can put pressure on the leaders for some change. And maybe when people go outside, the things which happen in those countries make it impossible. But I am appealing to Africans wherever they are. I'm taking this opportunity to appeal to, I always want to appeal to ordinary people, because ordinary people have nothing to lose. By coming together, it rather strengthens us. The people who are greedy and stealing our resources, they may find it difficult to unite, because maybe when they unite, they'll have to lose some of the resources. It is the leader of Tanzania, Nyerere, Julius Nyerere, who, when he was in Ghana some time ago, I think the 40th anniversary of Ghana's independence, said that the 1965 OAU conference in Ghana, Accra, Ghana, was one of the sad ones, because he said when Nkrumah introduced the issue of unity, the presidents from the various countries started worrying if they agreed to unity, whether they will go back to their countries as president, or they will lose their presidential seat before going back to their countries if there's one African government. And so you can see that it is those type of people who are afraid of unity, because they cannot imagine why Sassou Nguesso cannot imagine how we can have only one president in Africa now, and maybe he will not be a president. So obviously he doesn't want unity. But ordinary people, what do we lose? We don't lose anything. We can cross. It makes it possible to cross the various countries without checking our passport, without being stopped at the borders. And so ordinary people have everything to gain by we uniting. So unity, in fact, I think that unless Africa unites, Africa will continue to drown.